So this is just kind of a lesson on the fly. It's about negative numbers, and you guys are going to be dealing a lot more of these, dealing with these negative numbers, especially in 7th and 8th grade, but certainly some in 6th grade. And here's what I want you guys to understand, and you want to pay close attention, otherwise you're going to be completely lost, because you do not have a workbook to reference that will show you how to do this. Some of you maybe feel like you're pretty familiar with negative numbers, but there's some rules that apply depending on whether you add, subtract, multiply, or divide negative numbers. This lesson is going to be really simple. We're just talking about adding negative numbers and positive numbers. So if I wrote down a problem here, if I wrote, let's say if I wrote 5, whoops, let's try this again here. Take it off that. If I wrote 5 plus 2, you guys all know the answer to that is 7. Well, what if I said 5 adding, and then I'm going to put it in parentheses. I'm going to put a negative 2, okay, equals something. And the reason why I put it in parentheses is because it doesn't make a lot of sense if I wrote 5 plus minus 2. It's like, what the heck is that? So you put the parentheses often around the negative numbers so you can make sense of the problem. So, 5 adding 2, we know that's 7. Well, what do you think 5 adding negative 2 would be, Mr. Graham? 3. Okay, so, and you're right, it would be 3. Because in a way, we're not really adding 2, we're subtracting 2. We're adding the opposite of 2. What's the opposite of 2? No. The opposite of 2 is negative 2. So if I wrote down a number 8, what's the opposite of 8? Negative 8. If I wrote the number 1,562 and I ask you what its opposite is, it's negative 1,562. Now, what if I wrote down the number 3/4? What's its opposite? Yeah, same thing, negative 3/4. And what if I wrote down the number 0.52? What's its opposite? Negative 0.52, I should say. Okay? So if you have a positive number, you will have a negative number. And so again, we're just dealing right now with adding negative numbers to positive numbers. Now, before I go any further with that, let me show you something else here. On a number line, negative numbers are always to the left of 0. So if I have 0 right here, these are always going to be positive numbers. And to the left of 0, to the right is always positive, to the left of 0 is always negative. Okay? I don't know what you're messing with, but knock it off. Okay? So if I put 1 right here and 2 and 3 and let's say and 4, what would go right here? Negative 1, negative 2, negative 3, and negative 4. Now, what if I was looking at right here? What would that be in the positive? Between 0 and 1, what is it? Yeah, 1/2, or 0.5, I heard somebody say. So what would be right here? Negative 1/2, or negative 0.5. So if I wrote down 1 and 1/2 plus a negative 1/2, what would the answer be? It'd be 1. It would be 1. Because I'd start right here at 1 1/2, and I'm adding a negative 1/2, which is kind of like subtracting 1/2, and I would just go right to 1. All right, so let me put down some numbers here, and I want you guys to do these problems here. Let's do some practice ones. So do number 1 and number 2. Number 3.
We have to write down the problem.
It's up to you. I'm mainly interested in the answer. Number 4. And number 5. Okay, let's look at number 1 first. Miss Gage, number 1. What's the answer to number 1? Nah. Oh yeah, it is 12. I was thinking 16 for a second. Thank you. You were right. I was wrong. So 14 plus the negative 2. It's really the same thing as 14 minus 2, and she's right. The answer to that would be 12. Put up 50 points. Number 2. Miss Garrett's not here. Number 2, Mr. Ward. What would number 2 be? Oh, he's not in here. Mr. Moyers, is he there? Yeah, Mr. Moyers. What would number 2 be? Don't know. Okay. So, Mr. Hinkle, what would number 2 be?
600.
Number 2, no. Nice try. Let me see here. Miss Gunderson, number 2. What would number 2 be?
6.
No. I'm not sure where you guys are getting that. Miss Ugisa, number 2, what would that be? 11 and 1/2. You're just subtracting a half. That's all you're doing. Okay, I think some of you might have been multiplying or something, but all right, good. All right, number 3. Number 3, Mr. Cosgrove. What did you get for number 3?
7.
Yeah, 7. Again, you're adding a negative number. See, if I wrote, let's look at number 3 here for a second. If I wrote 7 and 1/2 plus 1/2, what's the answer?
6.
You guys would all know it's 8. But we're not adding a half. We're adding a negative 1/2. And that's really just the opposite. It's like subtracting. Okay? Number 4, Miss McGee, what did you get for number 4? Say again? Yeah, answer is 1. So let's say we're right here at 10, and let's say right here is 0. Here's 10. If we were just adding 9, where are we going to go? We're going to go that direction all the way to 19, but we're not. We're adding a negative 9, and so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So we're going to end up at 1. Okay, nicely done. Put up 50 points. Yeah, if you got it right, put up the 50 points. I don't think I've been saying that every time. Last one, number 5, is kind of a ticklish one. Haven't really talked about that yet, but you guys are going to have problems like this. Mr. Oldham, I pulled your stick. What do you think that would be, number 5? So, yeah, how would you phrase it a little differently? -1, okay? So, you guys watch this. Shh, just put up your points and go sit down. Here's 0. I'm going to say it's -1 right there. And so this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. So, not to scale, but it gets my point across. Here's 15. If we add a negative 16, it's like subtracting 16. And we don't just stop when we get to 0. We have one more to deal with because it's one more than 15. And so we would go all the way to negative 1. So if I had written 20, add a negative 25, what would that be?
Negative 5.
Negative 5. I think most of you guys see that now, okay? All right, so I'm just gonna write down some problems, and if I were you guys, I would copy down the problems, and if it helps you as you do these, to think of it in terms as a number line, it might help. If you add two positive numbers, you always go to the right. If you add a positive and a negative number, you're always going to go to the left. I don't know how much, maybe only a little bit, but you're always going to go to the left. Okay? Now, here's one more thing I want to say. What about if we added two negative numbers? And in middle math, I know I've done those kind of problems with you guys. It becomes a, well, you could say a bigger negative, but it's actually smaller. I mean, think about it this way. If this is 0, here's a negative 1, negative 2, negative 3, negative 4. Now, you guys pay attention to this. Which number, negative 1 or negative 4, which number is smaller? Yeah, good, negative 4. Because the further you go on the number line to the left, the smaller the number. Okay? So, whenever you add two negative numbers, you're going to get a smaller negative number, and you will always move to the left. So if I wrote negative 2, or negative 3 rather, plus a negative 2, what's the answer?
Negative 5.
Negative 5. If I wrote negative 25 plus a negative 2, what's the answer?
Negative 27.
Negative 27. So here's my number line, you guys. Look. I'll say zeros right here. Well, let's say negative 25 is right there. And I said add a negative 2. So I'm going to go 1, 2. Negative 27 is right there. And then again, I would ask you, which number is smaller? Negative 27 or negative 25? Negative 27. Because the further you go to the left, the smaller the number. Okay? And for those of you that just came in, you'll have to probably go back and watch the video because I really took some time and explained some concepts that I've not done so before. Because again, this is really out of the realm of 5th grade math. But I thought, here it is the last week of school, and how nice it would be for you guys to walk into 6th grade and you start dealing with negative numbers and you go, oh man, Mr. Glazer already talked about that. This is easy peasy. I got this. Okay? So, I'm going to write down some problems and question, Mr. Oldham?
What about multiplication?
Yeah, so that's a good question. If we multiply or divide or even subtract, dealing with negative numbers, it's different rules than what I just explained. Things change. It's not the same. So right now, I just want you guys to focus on adding with negative numbers. Okay, yeah, question, Mr. Button?
It's like negative 25 plus like negative 10. I mean, no, not plus negative 10. Plus like 10.
Oh, okay, good question. So Mr. Button asked, well, what if you got something like a negative 25? Okay, and I'll put a negative 25 here. And let's just put 0 right there. I always kind of like putting zeros on my number line just to kind of, so I have sort of a reference. And then he asked me the question, and correct me if I'm wrong, he said, what if you got like a negative 25 and then you add 10? Okay? So if we added another negative number, which way are we going? That way. But we're not adding a negative number. He said a positive 10. So we're going to go that way. And we're going to go that way to what? Negative 15. Make sense? Okay. Mr. Willard, question? No? Mr. Cosgrove, no? Okay. Okay, so again, I'm going to write down some problems here, and I want you guys to write them down and then do them. Write them down first.
Do we put the parentheses?
Always put the parentheses. Now, you guys, that's a good question here. Let me point out something to you. See these first two here? I've got a negative number. I did not put those in parentheses because the addition symbol came after them, so it's really not necessary. But you can if you want. Okay. That's it.